Hey y'all, now that we're into fall, the fall season, I'm in propagation mode. This is the best time of the year to like dig up your perennials and different things that clump that you can dig up and divide and spread around in your yard or give to friends or family. But what if you've got a bush or a shrub, I should say, coming up out of the ground that you would like to have more of, but you really don't want to go, buy another one, and you're trying, you want to save a little money, uh, but you would still like to have more of that plant, that shrub, uh, but it's not a plant that you can dig up and divide, and you don't want to take you don't want to take cuttings because it's a lot of work, and maybe you're somebody who really doesn't have time or just really don't want to mess with, cuttings all winter long. Well, I'm going to show you a way that you can do this and actually end up with a much bigger propagation, once it's rooted and stuff in the spring. I prefer to do this in the fall. You can do it any time of year. But for me, because during the fall, through the winter, it's really when we have our wettest seasons. And so it's just easier, more hands off. You're not really messing with it all winter long. But I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. It's very simple, and like I said, it's kind of a hands off method. And you will end up with a much bigger propagation than you would have if you had taken a cut. And if you've watched very many of my videos, you've probably noticed pots like this sitting around some of the shrubs. I know it looks a little, weird, and I've often wondered if people thought, why did she not move those pots before she made that video? Well, there's a reason why. Each one of these pots actually has one of the limbs off of this hydrangea, and they're propagating. Like I said, you can do this anytime during the year. I just prefer to do it in the fall. You can see I have a little hydrangea limb. Some have more than one coming out the end. Now, if you're doing this in the spring, you really don't want to you would want to cut the blooms off because you're trying to get it to produce roots. And so, I'm going to show you how I do this. And like I said, it's really simple. Okay, first off, you're going to need some kind of old pot. You can use any kind that you want because you're going to have to cut it. So, make sure it's something that you're not going to want to use later. Although you can reuse these for the same purpose of what we're fixing to do. But what you're going to want to do is get you some cutters or a knife or something like that. And you're gonna make 2 cuts here. And you want it to be kind of wide because the purpose of this is when you pull down a limb, it's going to lay across in here on the dirt on both sides. So I've got that one cut, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it down. You don't want to go all the way down because you're going to put dirt in this. And then you're going to come across. You want them to be, directly across from each other. I like to kind of line up with the holes. That way it's just easier. And you're going to do the same thing you just did. And then you're going to pull it down just like you did the other one, but don't go all the way to the bottom. And now this pot is ready to put dirt in. Okay, once you get your dirt in your pot, what you're going to want to do is the bush you're wanting to take the cutting from, you're going to want to find a limb that's lower to the ground because you're going to fold these two down, and you're going to put your limb in like that, and you're going to cover it with dirt and lay something heavy on it like a rock. But before you do that, so it will grow roots, you're going to want to take a knife. You're going to want to take a knife, and you're going to want to pull it up, and wherever this is going to touch the dirt, you're going to want to scrape it. You don't want to cut through all the way. You just want to scrape so it gets the bark off, and this is what's going to cause the roots to come out where you've scuffed it up. I don't know if you can see that, but I just took the bark off, just like that. You just basically peel the bark, and then you're going to pull this down into your pot, and this was the purpose of cutting the pot, so you could, and then you're just going to put dirt on top of it, and you just put it down in the dirt like that. I ended up going on ahead and scratching, cutting the bark on about 2 more because, well, they were kind of coming off that same one. You don't have to do that, but you can. You can actually make more than one. And then all you do is cover that with some kind of dirt. You can use potting soil. You can use dirt out of your yard. It doesn't really matter. And then once you get it covered with soil, you just want to lay something heavy on it to hold it down in the dirt. And I'm using rocks. You can use whatever you've got, a brick, a flower pot that's got dirt in it, just whatever's heavy enough to hold that down into the dirt. And then I'm going to pour a little water over it to kind of get this process started. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. And you just wait. Now, like with this one, it has a flower. You're going to want to cut that flower off. You don't have to, but I mean, why not? You can take it in the house and put it in water and have you a pretty, little arrangement if you add a few things with it. But anyways, that's all there is to it. And you just wait until next spring. I mean, doing it in the fall, like for me, where we're going to have our rainy season, fall and winter and early spring, come springtime, that'll be ready to cut loose and plant directly in the ground. And I really, like I said, you're not messing with it all winter long. And so I've got one that I did last fall that I probably should have already cut loose. And I'm going to show y'all that, and we'll see how well this method worked. Okay, this is one that I did last fall, and I'm going to cut this loose from the plant. And I don't know if you can see, you're going to go right back here behind the pot and just cut it loose. And then we're going to pull the pot up if I can. Actually had more than one in there. And we will take this to the shade and see if we have roots on this. Okay, we're going to pop this out of this pot real quick and see what kind of roots we got here. And I know that it's rooted. At least one of them. It turns out I have 2 in this pot. And so we're going to see. But I know at least one of them is rooted because you can see it's got green leaves on it. So let's pop this out of this pot real quick. Oh, And you can see that this is rooted. This is ready, these are ready to be planted in the ground. And this one's got roots too. It has small roots. The other one has big roots, and there's actually 3. You can see there's 2 right here and 1 here. And so I'm going to stick this back in the pot because I'm not ready to plant it right now. And I'll have to put some more dirt over the top of that and water it since I pulled it out. But this is I don't remember which hydrangea this was. But this method works for any hydrangea. You can do the big leaf hydrangeas, the panicle hydrangeas, just any kind of hydrangea that you have. This also works for basically any kind of bush that you can, has limbs low enough that you can pull down to the ground. And you don't have to do this in a pot. For me, it's easier to do this in a pot because, you just cut the side shoot off once you're ready to pull it out and plant it. But you can actually do this directly in the ground. When I was growing up, the way that most people in the family would propagate a bush, if somebody else in the family wanted one or they had a friend that wanted one, instead of taking a cutting, if it was a bush that you could pull down close to the ground, they would just do exactly what I did with putting it in a pot, except they would do it directly on the dirt, on the ground, and, scuff it up, pull it down, and then they would just take a shovel or 2 full of dirt and put over the top of it, and then lay a heavy rock or something on top, whatever would hold it to the ground. And then in the next spring, they would dig it up and give it to, whoever in the family they were propagating it for. And so this is actually an old-timey method. It's just a newer method with doing it in the pot. It makes it a little easier, and you're not really having to dig up your landscape and all that to be able to propagate it directly on the ground. But you can do it whichever way is easier for you. And so I thought that I would show y'all this because you can see it's a much bigger plant than what you would have got if you had just took, a top cutting like this to propagate. You'd be starting out with just a really small plant, And by doing it this way, you have a much bigger plant that's comparable to what you would buy at a plant nursery or a big box store or whatever for, that was already in like a 1 or 3 gallon pot. If you left all this together, and just made one plant, it would, be equivalent, I guess, to like a 3 gallon pot. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to separate them out. Uh, this one may not have rooted. It doesn't feel like it's, it has little roots on it, but I'll just have to break this one open and look to make sure that it's still alive, but I know the other 2 are. So anyways, I hope this helps if you're looking for, a better way to propagate for a bigger bush, a bigger shrub. Uh, like I said, I've done this. I actually have some right now with the butterfly bush. I've got some propagating the same way. And I can't remember what else I've got, but like I said, loropetalums, uh, butterfly bush, abelia, anything, or you could even do this with a tree if it has, limbs that are coming to the ground. Like, for example, a weeping willow, a weeping cherry, any kind of, tree that's not been pruned up yet that still has limbs at the bottom. This will work. This method works for anything as long as you can pull it to the ground. Or you could, set up a little table beside of it and do this if it was higher up. It's just, whatever's easier for you, and depending on what kind of plant you're trying to propagate. So anyways, I hope this helps. And until next time, bye.